Most people think muscle is built in the gym. That's the common belief. You train hard, you tear the muscle and it grows. But the truth is the gym is just the spark. The real transformation happens later, when your body slips into deep, restorated sleep. That's when growth hormone peaks. That's when protein synthesis is activated. That's when the damage from your training is repaired and rebuilt into strength. It's not the lifting, it's the sleeping that creates muscle. And what you do in the few hours before bed can either unlock that recovery or sabotage it completely. Now let's pause for a moment and think more deeply, because this isn't just about physiology, it's about timing. Nature has its rhythms. You don't see a tree grow in the dead of winter. It waits. It stores energy, then uses it in the right season. Your body works the same way. There are times when it's primed for energy and times when it's primed for restoration. The nighttime window is sacred. It's designed for regeneration. And yet many people unknowingly blunt that potential with a simple but powerful mistake. They eat the wrong thing too close to bedtime. See, when you go to sleep, your body wants to direct its energy inward to healing, detoxifying, consolidating memory, and rebuilding tissue. If you eat late, especially heavy, processed, or sugary foods, you force your body to shift gears. Instead of repairing, it's digesting. Instead of releasing growth hormone, it's dealing with elevated insulin. That hormonal interference isn't minor, it's profound. Growth hormone. The key hormone responsible for building and preserving lean muscle is highest in the first few hours of deep sleep, but it's deep sleep. If your blood sugar is unstable, if your cortisol is elevated from stress or stimulants, if your insulin is high from a late night snack, that sleep becomes fragmented, and when sleep is shallow, growth hormone release is significantly suppressed. Think about what that means over weeks and months. You're working hard in the gym, maybe even eating clean during the day, but you grab a snack before bed because it's become routine. A granola bar, a handful of chips, a scoop of ice cream. It feels innocent, but biochemically, it's loud. It keeps your body on alert instead of allowing it to surrender to recovery. And slowly, you notice that your strength plateaus, your muscle tone softens, your energy dips, not because you're not trying, but because you're unknowingly turning off the very signal your body needs to grow. This is why we need to start looking at sleep, not just as rest, but as an anabolic window, a window where your body is actively building, tissues are mending, cells are regenerating. If you honor that window, you amplify your gains. If you ignore it, you shrink your results. No matter how dialed in the rest of your day is. There's also something beautiful, almost spiritual, about aligning your habits with the natural intelligence of your body. When you stop eating a few hours before bed, your system's allowed to exhale. It's no longer trying to break down food. It's not navigating blood sugar spikes. It can go deep into delta wave sleep, into repair mode, into hormonal harmony. And you wake up with a very different kind of energy, not the wired, caffeine-dependent kind, but the kind that comes from restoration, from knowing your body wasn't fighting itself all night. This is the crossroads many of us don't realize we're standing at every evening. It's not just about whether you eat, it's when. The body keeps score, and late night eating, especially with the wrong foods, tells the body to store fat instead of burn it, to break down muscle instead of rebuild it, to stay alert instead of drop into the parasympathetic state where healing lives. What's powerful is how simple the shift can be. You don't need to fast for 16 hours or overhaul your entire nutrition strategy. Sometimes the most effective change is simply choosing not to eat that snack at 10 p.m., giving your body a clean runway into the night, letting sleep be what it's meant to be, a time of reconstruction, not digestion. So the next time you're tempted to eat before bed, pause and ask yourself, am I feeding hunger or am I feeding a habit? Because most of the time, that urge isn't coming from your body, it's coming from your psychology, from routine, from stress, from distraction. And if you can begin to recognize that, if you can learn to respond differently, you give your body something far more powerful than a late night snack. to give it the conditions it needs to thrive. The hours before sleep are not neutral. They're either building you up or breaking you down. Choose the habits that let your body heal in silence so you can rise stronger in the morning. Let's talk about something that seems harmless, even comforting, but is quietly working against your deepest recovery every night. Sugar. Specifically, eating sugar before bed. It's one of the most subtle saboteurs of deep sleep and muscle growth, and it's hidden in plain sight. A scoop of frozen yogurt, a couple of cookies, maybe just a spoonful of honey in your nighttime tea. It feels small, innocent. Sometimes it even feels healthy. But what happens next, beneath the surface, is far from harmless. Here's the reality. When you consume sugar at night, your body responds with an insulin surge. That's normal. Insulin's job is to shuttle glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells. But at night, that response comes with consequences. Because insulin and growth hormone are antagonistic, they compete. When insulin is high, growth hormone gets suppressed. And that's a major issue if you're trying to build muscle, recover faster, or simply age with more vitality. Growth hormone doesn't just help you grow. It's a master regulator of repair. It facilitates tissue regeneration, fat metabolism, even immune strength. And guess when it peaks? Not during your workout, not during your lunch break. It surges in the early hours of deep, uninterrupted sleep, particularly when your insulin is low. So every time you eat sugar before bed, you're dimming one of your most powerful internal lights, the very hormone that rebuilds you. But it's not just about hormones, it's about rhythm. When you spike insulin at night, you don't just suppress growth hormone, you trigger a cascade that can derail your sleep architecture entirely. First, you'll fall asleep faster. That part is deceptive. A rise in blood sugar can sedate you initially, giving a false sense of relaxation. But then, hours later, as that blood sugar drops, your body experiences a rebound. Hypoglycemia, a sudden dip in blood sugar that signals the adrenal glands to release cortisol and adrenaline. Those are stress hormones. That's why you might find yourself waking up at 2 or 3 a.m. with your heart racing, mind wandering, or just feeling restless and alert for no clear reason. That fragmentation of sleep is critical because once your sleep becomes shallow or interrupted, your body no longer cycles through the necessary stages, particularly the slow wave sleep where growth hormone pulses the strongest. You lose that deep regenerative layer. It's like starting a phone charge at 5%, then unplugging it halfway through the night. You may still function the next day, but not at full power. And over time, that lack of full restoration compounds. You train, but your muscles don't recover. You try to focus, but your brain's foggy. You eat clean, but your fat loss stalls. You think it's stress or aging, but often it's just poor hormonal timing created by one recurring mistake. And here's the deeper issue. We often reach for sugar at night, not because of physical hunger, but emotional fatigue. It's the psychological craving for comfort at the end of a long day. Sugar activates dopamine. It gives a little reward, a sense of closure, but it's fleeting, and it leaves a biological mess in its wake. So the question becomes not just, should I avoid sugar at night, but what am I truly seeking in that moment? Is it nourishment or is it escape? At that moment of reflection is powerful because the choice to skip the sugar isn't just a dietary decision, it's an act of self-alignment. It says, I value tomorrow's energy more than tonight's indulgence. I choose strength over sedation. That might sound dramatic for a cookie, but when you start to see food as an input into your circadian biology, everything changes. You begin to realize that every bite you take is either feeding recovery or delaying it. There's not much in between. The good news is this: your body responds quickly to change. Even one night without sugar before bed can improve sleep depth. A few consistent days, and you'll feel a shift in how your body wakes, how your mind focuses, and how your workouts perform. You'll start noticing muscle recovery improves, soreness diminishes, and even your mood stabilizes. That's not a placebo. That's physiology working in your favor, no longer at odds with your habits. So next time you feel the pull toward that late night sweet, pause. Ask yourself, is this moving me closer to repair or further from it? And remember, your body is always listening, always adapting to the signals you send. If you give it the right signals, especially at night, it will show up for you in ways that feel almost miraculous. Growth isn't just about what you do in the gym, it's about what you don't do at night. Protect the silence, protect the stillness. That's where real transformation begins. Now let's dive deeper into something that most people overlook, but is silently pulling the strings behind sleep disruption and muscle breakdown. Cortisol. We usually think of cortisol as the stress hormone, which it is, but what many don't realize is that your nighttime eating habits, especially those involving carbs and processed foods, can provoke cortisol spikes at exactly the wrong time. This isn't just about your mood or stress levels. This is about how your body decides whether to build or break down. And when cortisol wins the hormonal tug of war at night, your muscles lose. Cortisol is a fascinating hormone. It's not the villain it's often made out to be. It plays a critical role in metabolism, alertness, and even immune response. The problem is not that we have cortisol. The problem is when it shows up. In a healthy rhythm, cortisol is supposed to rise in the morning, helping you wake up, and then taper off throughout the day, reaching its lowest point at night so melatonin can rise and usher you into restful sleep. That's how your body transitions from action to restoration. But when you eat late, especially foods high in sugar or refined carbs, that rhythm gets flipped. Late night eating, particularly when it's habitual, creates a stress response. It's subtle but real. First, your insulin rises to handle the incoming glucose. Then, as blood sugar inevitably drops a few hours later, your body perceives this as a threat, hypoglycemia. In response, it activates the adrenal glands to pump out cortisol and adrenaline to stabilize blood sugar levels. That's not restoration, that's survival. And your nervous system, instead of relaxing into parasympathetic rest and digest mode, is pulled back into sympathetic fight or flight. You may still be lying in bed, eyes closed, but your internal world is on high alert. And you wake up groggy, wondering why you don't feel rested, even though you got 7 or 8 hours. This is how cortisol becomes a thief in the night. Elevated cortisol not only fragments your sleep, it blocks muscle protein synthesis, suppresses growth hormone, and increases muscle catabolism, meaning your body breaks down muscle tissue instead of repairing it. Think about that. You go to the gym, you work hard, you create micro tears in your muscle fibers, hoping they'll rebuild stronger. But if cortisol is dominant overnight, that rebuilding never happens. You're caught in a cycle of depletion, not development. And this cycle has a psychological echo. When cortisol is elevated at night, it doesn't just hurt your body, it affects your mind. You wake up anxious, less focused, emotionally reactive. You might even find yourself reaching for caffeine first thing just to stabilize your energy. That starts another cycle. Artificial stimulation in the morning, overstimulation in the evening, disrupted sleep at night. Over time, your resilience diminishes. Not because you're aging or unmotivated, but because your biology is caught in conflict, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's important to understand that this isn't a willpower issue, it's a rhythm issue. Your body wants to restore itself, it's designed for it, but it needs the right cues. And when we confuse it, when we flood the system with food and stimulation at night, we lose the opportunity to align with our natural repair processes. That's when chronic fatigue sets in. That's when people feel like they're doing everything right, but seeing no results. So what's the solution? It's surprisingly simple. Don't eat late, especially not carb heavy or processed foods. Create a cutoff time. Ideally 2 to 3 hours before bed. Let your body transition into a low insulin, low cortisol state. Let melatonin rise. Let growth hormone peak. Let your nervous system calm itself. These are subtle shifts, but they make a profound difference. Over time, your body recalibrates. Sleep becomes deeper. Recovery accelerates. Your muscles respond. Your brain clears. There's also something deeply empowering about choosing stillness over stimulation. In a world that constantly pushes us to consume, The discipline to not eat before bed is a quiet act of self-mastery. It says, I know what I need and I'm willing to honor it. And that message echoes back through your physiology. Your body responds to that level of respect. It begins to trust you again. And when the body trusts, it heals. So ask yourself tonight, am I fueling growth or feeding a cycle that's draining me? Every small choice shapes the hormonal environment you wake up to. You don't need perfection. You just need to interrupt the pattern long enough to feel the difference. And once you do, that clarity will speak louder than any craving ever could. Cortisol doesn't just steal your sleep, it steals your growth. Reclaim your nights and your body will do what it's always wanted to do, rebuild you. Let's turn now to something deceptively simple. Timing. We've already talked about what late night eating does to your hormones and sleep. But what if I told you that when you eat could be just as important as what you eat, particularly when it comes to muscle growth and deep restorative sleep? The body operates on rhythms, what we call circadian rhythms, and every cell from your brain to your muscle fibers is tuned to this natural clock. And when you eat late at night, you're not just feeding your body, you're sending a confusing signal to that internal clock. You're telling it, stay awake, stay alert, stay digesting. And that one choice can throw off an entire symphony of repair and growth that's supposed to happen while you sleep. Here's what we know. Our metabolism is not fixed throughout the day. It follows a rhythm that peaks during daylight hours and slows dramatically as the sun sets. This is no coincidence. It's built into our DNA, dating back to when humans rose with the sun and slept with the stars. When you eat in the evening, particularly close to bedtime, your body is forced to prioritize digestion when it should be winding down. It's like running the dishwasher while also trying to meditate. You're asking your system to do two conflicting tasks at once. And that digestive work doesn't just affect your gut. It impacts your entire hormonal cascade. Late eating delays melatonin release, the hormone that signals your brain it's time to sleep, and dampens the onset of slow-wave sleep. That's the deep restorative phase where growth hormone pulses, muscle fibers are repaired, immune cells regenerate, and the brain consolidates memory. If your body is still breaking down a late meal, that deep sleep is shortened or skipped altogether. You might still be unconscious, but you're not truly resting. You're not rebuilding. Now let's zoom in on muscle growth, which so many people focus on in the gym, but neglect in the kitchen. You could lift weights, follow a great program, even get enough protein, but if your body never fully enters recovery mode at night, the gains just don't materialize. Muscle isn't built during your workout, it's built during your sleep. And if digestion is stealing energy and attention from that process, you're left spinning your wheels. Timing also affects insulin sensitivity. Our cells are far more responsive to insulin in the morning and early afternoon, which means nutrients are more efficiently absorbed and used when eaten earlier in the day. At night, insulin sensitivity drops. That late night snack you thought was harmless, it leads to higher blood sugar, longer digestion, and greater fat storage, not to mention suppressed growth hormone. It's not just about calories, it's about context. But I want to take this further, not just physiologically, but philosophically. There's a lesson in this timing. When we eat late, we often do so out of habit or emotion. It's not hunger that drives the late night bowl of cereal or chips. It's fatigue, stress, boredom, or loneliness. But the body interprets it mechanistically. It thinks we must still be in activity mode, delay repair, stay alert. In that sense, the very act of eating late becomes symbolic. It represents a disconnection between mind and body, a refusal or forgetting to slow down. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine choosing to stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. You're signaling to your body, the day is done, it's time to restore, time to enter the sacred space of regeneration. That decision, repeated nightly, becomes a rhythm, and over time, rhythms become rituals. You begin sleeping deeper, waking clearer, feeling stronger, not because of a supplement or a hack, but because you chose to work with your biology instead of against it. And here's the beautiful part. This is completely in your control. You don't need a prescription. You don't need fancy tech. You just need the discipline to draw a line in your evening, a boundary that protects your recovery. This boundary isn't restrictive, it's restorative. It's an invitation to let your body do what it's been trying to do all along: rebuild, recover, renew. So as you consider your evening routine tonight, ask yourself, am I aligning with nature's rhythm or resisting it? Your body is always listening, always responding to the signals you send. And when you align your eating with the rhythm of rest, your body will reward you with energy, clarity, and strength that no late night snack could ever match. Consistency in timing is not a restriction, it's a rhythm of respect. Honor that rhythm and you'll unlock a level of healing that no food alone can provide. Now let's talk about one of the most insidious barriers to muscle growth and deep sleep: insulin resistance. Most people think of insulin resistance as something only diabetics need to worry about, or maybe something to think about in terms of weight gain. But few people realize how profoundly it affects two of the body's most essential functions: building muscle and entering restorative sleep. And here's where it gets really interesting. Insulin resistance isn't just something that happens gradually over time. It can be triggered, amplified, and entrenched by a very common habit: eating high sugar or refined carb foods before bed. Let's step back for a moment. Insulin is a powerful hormone. When it's working properly, it acts like a key, unlocking the door to your cells so glucose, amino acids, and nutrients can be absorbed and used efficiently. After a meal, your pancreas releases insulin to shuttle that glucose out of the bloodstream and into muscle, liver, and fat cells. That's normal. But when insulin is triggered too frequently, especially by high glycemic foods late at night, the system becomes overloaded. The cells stop responding to insulin's signal. The key no longer works, and your body has to pump out even more insulin just to get the job done. This is insulin resistance. And it's not just a blood sugar issue. It's a whole body dysfunction, one that starts a cascade of disruptions that reach into your sleep cycles and your muscle tissue. At night, when the body is supposed to shift into a fat-burning, growth hormone-producing, muscle-repairing state, insulin resistance can lock you out of that process. It keeps insulin levels elevated longer than they should be. And when insulin is high, growth hormone is suppressed. That's a simple but critical truth. High insulin equals low growth hormone. So if you're eating something sugary or carb heavy before bed, you may be unknowingly blocking one of the most important repair mechanisms your body has. Think about that. You're not just satisfying a craving, you're interrupting a hormonal conversation that's supposed to lead to recovery. And if this happens consistently, night after night, your body becomes to adapt to the dysfunction. Sleep becomes lighter. Muscle repair slows. Fat storage increases, inflammation rises, you might feel tired but wired, you might find it harder to recover after workouts, harder to maintain muscle mass, even though your effort hasn't changed. Now there's also a psychological dimension here that's worth exploring. Many people reach for food late at night, not out of hunger, but out of habit, out of a need for comfort, for control, for distraction. And the foods we choose in those moments are rarely the ones that nourish. They're the ones that sedate. Sugar, starch, processed snacks. They give us a fleeting sense of relief, a temporary escape, but the cost of that comfort is biological confusion. The body doesn't interpret it emotionally, it responds hormonally. And it gets stuck in a cycle of trying to clean up the mess long after the mind has moved on. This is why insulin resistance is not just a metabolic issue, it's a rhythm issue, a relationship issue. It reflects a disconnect between intention and behavior, between what the body needs and what we habitually give it. And the good news is, this disconnect is repairable. The body wants to restore its sensitivity to insulin. It wants to return to balance. But that process starts with a choice. To stop stimulating insulin when you no longer need to. One of the most effective ways to do this is to eliminate late night eating, especially foods high in sugar or refined carbs. Give your body a window of fasting, ideally 2 to 3 hours before sleep. In that window, insulin levels naturally drop. Growth hormone has room to rise, fat metabolism increases, the brain enters deeper stages of sleep, muscles begin to rebuild. This isn't theory, it's biology. And it's not about deprivation, it's about alignment. There's something powerful about restoring this balance, not just for your physiology, but for your sense of control. When you stop chasing comfort through food at night, you reclaim a part of your identity that may have been on autopilot. You tell your body, I'm ready to heal. I'm willing to give you the space to do what you were designed to do. And your body responds quickly if you're consistent. Sleep deepens, muscle tone improves, energy returns, your cravings shift. You no longer need the short-term fix because your system has learned how to regulate itself again. That's the real win. Not just better sleep or more muscle, but a deeper relationship with your body, grounded in trust and rhythm. Insulin resistance doesn't just block nutrients, it blocks growth. Choose clarity over craving. Choose healing over habit, and your body will rise to meet you in strength, not in struggle. Let's talk about something that often slips under the radar in conversations about health and sleep. How inflammation, triggered by the wrong foods before bed, quietly undermines your body's ability to rebuild, repair, and rest. Inflammation isn't always visible. It doesn't always scream. It whispers. It lingers. And when it becomes chronic, it slowly dismantles the very systems you rely on to stay strong, vital, and mentally sharp. One of the biggest culprits in stoking this silent fire, what we choose to eat at night, especially foods that are ultra-processed, high in sugar, refined oils, or laced with chemicals your body doesn't recognize. Now, the body is designed to handle inflammation in small doses. It's part of the healing response. You cut your hand, you get a little swelling. That's your body doing its job. But when inflammation becomes systemic, when it's not resolving but constantly re-triggered, especially by food, that's when the real damage starts. And that's exactly what happens when we eat inflammatory foods before bed. We're setting the stage for internal chaos at the exact time our bodies are supposed to be entering a deep state of restoration. Sleep is not just rest, it's recovery. During deep sleep, your brain detoxifies itself, your cells regenerate, your muscles rebuild, growth hormone rises, cortisol falls. It's a sacred window, biologically speaking. But when inflammation is high, those signals get scrambled. The nervous system stays on high alert. Cytokines, those inflammatory messengers, circulate longer than they should, and the body, rather than focusing on repair, shifts into defense mode. You don't sleep as deeply, you wake up more frequently. You might not even remember it, but you feel it in the morning, that groggy, heavy, unrested feeling, even after a full night in bed. Now, let's look at the foods behind this pattern. It's not always the obvious junk. Sometimes it's that innocent-looking bowl of microwave popcorn, or a seemingly healthy granola bar that's really packed with corn syrup and seed oils. It's the pizza, the crackers, the sugary cereals, or even some meat substitutes that contain industrial additives, emulsifiers, and preservatives. These ingredients act like invaders to your immune system. They create confusion, and that confusion generates an immune response, an inflammatory one, but it doesn't stop there. Inflammatory foods before bed don't just affect the quality of your sleep, they also interfere with the body's ability to absorb key nutrients needed for muscle synthesis and neurological health. Zinc, magnesium, B vitamins, they all play essential roles in muscle repair and neurotransmitter function. Chronic inflammation disrupts the gut lining, reducing nutrient absorption. And what's worse, inflammatory foods can damage the microbiome, leading to imbalances that further disturb sleep and metabolism. It's a vicious cycle. Eat the wrong thing, trigger inflammation, impair sleep, worsen muscle loss, feel exhausted, crave more inflammatory foods. Round and round it goes. Philosophically, there's something deeper here too. Eating before bed, especially out of emotional impulse, is often a reflection of inner disconnection, a disconnection between what we know and what we do. We may be aware intellectually that those chips or cookies aren't helping us, yet we go for them anyway. Why? Because in the quiet of the evening, food becomes more than fuel. It becomes comfort. It becomes escape. But when that comfort comes at the cost of physical breakdown, we have to ask ourselves, what are we really feeding? This is where conscious eating, especially in the evening, becomes not just a health choice, but a philosophical one. Are we aligning with our body's natural rhythms, or are we overriding them for momentary pleasure? Are we choosing to support healing or to delay it? Because every bite you take at night is a message to your body, and your body is always listening. Here's what's powerful. The shift doesn't have to be drastic. Small changes add up. Swapping processed snacks for anti-inflammatory options like a handful of walnuts, a few slices of avocado, or a calming herbal tea can dramatically reduce overnight inflammation. Giving your body even just a few nights of low inflammatory clean evenings can reset your sleep, reduce water retention, and restore muscle sensitivity. Over time, this becomes your new rhythm, not a rule, but a ritual, a way of saying, I respect this vessel enough to not burden it right before it heals. The truth is, inflammation is the body's cry for help. It's not the enemy, it's a signal. And once we start listening, really listening, we begin to respond differently. We make choices rooted in healing, not habit. We move from reaction to intention. What you eat before bed is either helping you rebuild or silently breaking you down. Tonight, choose to nourish your body, not inflame it. Because healing isn't just what happens during sleep, it's what you prepare for before sleep.